What's up, guys? CJ here, and welcome back to another all-new episode of Hybrid TV, Hybrid Network's television show podcast, where we'll break down everything from streaming shows on Netflix, Hulu, CBS All Access, which we'll talk about a little bit today, and, of course, networks, cable, really anything that comes on your television we will talk about. Joined by the new usual suspects, Tim and Will. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right. Just keeping on.
Keeping on.
Yep.
Yeah, trying to rest up and make sure I get all my stuff done that I need for the weekend. You know.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Hear that? So this is actually going to be the new core of Hybrid TV. This cast right here, myself, Willard, and Timothy. We are going to be your guides to the wild world of cable and network and streaming. Defenders, of course, released in August. It was the culmination of all these Marvel Netflix series, much anticipated. And apparently, according to a new study, it is the lowest rated of any of Marvel's Netflix shows, if you can believe it.
I can.
This new study, you can? You
Yeah.
can believe it?
Yeah, I can believe it.
I believe it. So this is a marketing analytics firm named JumpShot checked out these Netflix Marvel original series, basically. It was a study because Netflix, it's not like, the networks, they don't release their ratings. It's kind of harder for them to, I guess, I don't know if it's like harder to process or whatever it is, but they have their ratings. They very rarely release them. Usually it'll only be if it's positive. But this specific study was analyzing the first 30 days of viewership of all of these series going back to the very first season of Daredevil. And basically, this study confirms some things that I'm not sure anyone's going to find surprising. Daredevil Season 2 is still the high watermark. It was the most watched in the first 30 days of any of Marvel's Netflix series, of course, coming off of the very, very successful first season of Daredevil and Jessica Jones being, a real critical success as well. Daredevil Season 2 was great, and then The Defenders, believe it or not, so Daredevil Season 2 is the high watermark. Defenders had just 17% of Daredevil Season 2's 30-day viewership.
Jeez.
17%. And this is basically at least one episode of each series. So Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones basically were around 28, 27, and 26% of Daredevil Season 2's viewership. And then The Defenders, not only was it much lower than the other series and that much lower than Daredevil Season 2, it also had the largest week-by-week drop from 67% to 48% to 41%. So it's like it debuted, and then it just completely tailed off, which maybe not surprising. Do these numbers shock you at all? I mean, Will, you said you weren't surprised. Is there any particular reason, or your own experiences with the show?
I mean, I thought I liked Defenders, but I think what a lot of people were looking for was kind of like the Avengers, but for the Netflix show. So like Dark Avengers almost. Not to make that a thing, but
street level gritty.
Yeah, street level gritty Avengers. But when the first couple episodes were at in San Diego, and then kind of the reviews came out and the buzz came out, they kind of got a lot of muddled press, and there was still about 3 weeks out between those first couple episodes, and a lot of people were trying to say, like, we'll hold reservation for the rest of it, but it feels like a slow burn. Even when we covered it, like, we didn't say it was bad, but we said it was just kind of okay. And
yeah,
when you think of Marvel or even any TV show, and you're talking to someone and they're like, yeah, it was all right, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll check it out later. So like, you'll put it off, and if you get enough people, that'll severely drop your numbers. Plus, kind of
exactly.
Plus, I think they're still like trying to pull themselves up from all the Iron Fist stuff. It's like, we gotta save this one, and it just might not have worked out really. I mean, I think it's better, but like, I'm not super shocked that, like, they're not terrible stats, but they're low, and that's not great for a Marvel show.
No, exactly, and it's really not. And who would have thought, I guess, that Iron Fist, even before, I feel like, if you told people, it's like, yeah, Iron Fist isn't going to be good, I'm pretty sure like nobody would have considered it like it's like, oh shit, this is going to be like a huge stumbling block that Marvel, Netflix, their shows might never recover from.
Actually, now that
but so far it has been.
Now that I think about it, too, some of the marketing, it's not that they marketed it poorly, but the trailers just didn't get people super invested either. When I think about it,
Yeah.
I think it went from being one of those things that people were looking towards, and kind of like it became one of those things that was just happening. You know?
Yeah.
You know, because after the first couple of Daredevil seasons, you were like, oh shit. You know, it was like right after Iron Man, like everyone was like, oh fuck, Avengers Initiative. And it's like maybe after Iron Man 2, you were a little bit less excited for it. It's like Defenders, it's like, you know, after Daredevil season 2, oh shit, Defenders is happening. And then after Iron Fist, it's like, like we can skip this.
Yeah, I think Iron Fist kind of pulled some of the energy down with it, because it's kind of like, you know, you see the Daredevil shows, you're like, all right, I'm excited. Jessica Jones, you're like, okay. So you're starting to see the establishment of these different characters. And then you get to Danny, and it kind of hits a wall. And Defenders absolutely. Was like the slide down from that wall. And it's like, yeah.
But even then, like, a lot of people were more mixed on Luke Cage than the previous 2 series also.
That's true.
That's true. But I mean, I feel like that was, I don't want to say that was like intended. I feel like there was a reason for that, and I feel like Luke Cage was, you know, unapologetically black.
Yeah.
It was very, very, you know,
which can,
you know, and I think it was the way it should have been.
It's not even just that, it's the fact that like the show takes like a 180 halfway through it, and like,
oh yeah, that's true. With the villains
that.
And everything.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say, I think there were a lot of people that were kind of like, because believe me, I've talked to a lot of people that were like, I don't want to say like uncomfortable, but they were like, you know, holy shit, this is, you know, they were like, yeah, I'm not the audience for this, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I am not the audience for
I
this,
hope
but
for Luke Cage season 2 they use the tagline "uncomfortably black."
Actually, they might do that. Luke Cage season 2 unapologetically black. It's like, well, yeah, that's, I figured.
Basically,
he is in Harlem.
I'm really excited for that. Whenever that's going to get going,
Luke Cage ungentrifies Harlem.
There you go.
It's the whole plot of season 2.
That actually, you know, I would watch that show.
That'd be funny.
But no, you're right. It did take a complete 180, and it was a little bit, I think, more mixed, because I think a lot of critics were like, "Holy shit, this is really good," and then a lot of the fans were like a little more on the fence. Jessica Jones was very similar. I found
Jessica
that
Jones
critics liked Jessica Jones a lot more than some fans did.
Yep. Jessica Jones, it's just the way it was laid up. It's probably my least favorite of the Netflix shows.
See,
I mean, I think it's not what people were expecting after, like, 2 seasons of Daredevil being gritty and action-packed and, like, ultra-violent.
Well, Jessica Jones came out before Daredevil season 2, I think.
Well, I was thinking just after 1 season of Daredevil. I don't think it was quite what it was. I think it was partially that it was so different from Daredevil, like, people weren't expecting that. And the audience wasn't guaranteed to like it because it was so different. But I think it's also just a much slower burn. It's a lot different.
Well, the issue is that it's 8 episodes of story stretched out for 13 episodes.
That's true, and I think that's the issue that Netflix has a lot. And that's actually one of the things that I enjoyed with the Defenders, was it didn't feel like there was a lot of the pussyfooting around that all of the other seasons had.
I kind of disagree. I feel like it's still at the same pussyfooting around, but they never really recovered from it by the end of it. Because one of the big problems with Defenders that I had was, like, them teaming up, like, it didn't really feel like that big a deal for them doing it, and it didn't feel like they did it that much. Like, they get together, and then Jessica Jones immediately leaves and then comes back at the end of that episode.
And the weird my bad, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, it did feel like every team-up, you know, movie is going to have that, you know, it's like, we're a band of misfits and we don't necessarily like working together. And, you know, it feels like they never got over that in Defenders.
Yeah.
It's like Avengers, it's like you have like Hulk and Thor literally fighting like halfway through the movie, but they eventually recover. I mean, you know, Justice League, I'm sure, is going to have like a similar thing. We've already seen in the trailers. Aquaman doesn't initially want to join the team. From rumors we've heard, Cyborg doesn't initially jump on the bandwagon either. but eventually they'll set aside their differences. In Defenders, it kind of felt like it was going to the bitter end. And it felt like it went beyond just, because we had heard it was going to be, it's like, okay, these are people that like wouldn't necessarily like grab a beer together, but they're working together to save New York. It's like, okay, but I feel like we went a little bit beyond that.
And
one of the other things that, like, them teaming up just didn't feel big enough. Like, there was no, like, epic moment of unity between them. It was just like, all four of them are here for, like, 2 action scenes. They fight together. The rest of the time, they're split up.
Yeah, there were some things that kind of felt lacking. Like, I liked Jessica Jones the first season, but when she showed up in Defenders, I really didn't like her, and I think it's because there was no growth really between, like, you can see some growth in Matt Murdock. Like, he's had 2 seasons, he's had the most setup at least, but I can see growth between Danny, between Luke, between Matt, but I don't see any for Jess. And I think that's another thing that kind of pulled it down, is that they needed, even if that's what's hard, kind of, is that you have to find that balance of, like, giving proper character development and telling your story, but also fitting that into 8 episodes and making it seem like a big thing. And it is kind of like they're juggling a lot with the show.
Yeah. But one thing with Jessica Jones, like, outside of holding up the elevator at the end, like, there's really nothing connecting her to what's going on.
Yeah, that's also true.
Like, you don't have, like, literally of all the characters, you do not have to have seen her Netflix show before you saw this series.
No, you don't.
It is not connected at all.
Like, you maybe would get some context on who Malcolm is, but he shows up for, like, 1 scene.
But even then, it feels like he's kind of different in this season than he was at the end of Jessica Jones.
He's off the drugs.
Basically.
Yeah, but when he got off the drugs, like, he was a more stable person. In this, it feels like he's, like, slipping back into how he was in the middle of last season.
It's set up for season 2 when he gets back on the drugs.
Yeah. Be sure to leave that hashtag, AskHybridTV. Also, check out the full episode of this podcast on SoundCloud. As always, we've got the full, I think at this point it's going to be about a 50-minute episode you can check out, where we're going to ramble and talk about Corey in the house some more.
Woo!
But on that, like I said, on that bombshell, this is CJ for Will and Tim. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Later.